I was 15 when my mother warned me that one day, I might not come back. I thought she was just being a worried mother, but I had no idea how true those words would turn out to be. No idea that the promise of a better life would turn into the nightmare I now live. I thought I was leaving poverty behind. But instead, I walked straight into hell. They told my parents I'd be learning computer skills in Lagos. But by the second night, I was on my knees, bleeding, naked, and used by powerful men. The third night, a dog was inside of me. Please like, subscribe, share your thoughts in the comment section and tells us where you are watching from. It helps the growth of this channel. My name is Aisha. I was trafficked, raped, violated, and sold. And the woman who did this to me was worshipped in my village like a queen. I'm from Katsina State, Northern Nigeria. I grew up in a house where hunger wasn't an occasional visitor, it was a tenant. We were 5 in total: Baba, Mima, my younger sister Rahila, my baby brother Usman, and me. Baba farmed. Mama farmed. I fried tofu awara on the roadside after school. Sometimes I added cold sachet water and soft drinks just to scrape extra coins. I woke up to the usual sounds: my mother's quiet hum in the kitchen, the distant bleat of goats, the faint rustling of my younger siblings turning in their sleep. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, but I knew what time it was. It was the time to get up, help my mother prepare breakfast, and then rush off to school. Another day, another struggle. But school had become more of a burden than a blessing. Every term, it was the same. My parents tried their best, but they couldn't always afford the fees. Sometimes, I'd return home only to be sent back the very next day. No money, no school. And so I would go to the road, selling fried awara, also known as fried tofu, and sachet water to make a few naira to contribute. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't a dream come true. But it was all I knew. I didn't complain. I had no right to. I was just a girl from a family who had nothing, and my future seemed as bleak as the dirt roads we walked on. But I had hope, small as it was. I dreamed of something better, something beyond the weight of poverty. One evening, as I returned from the road with an empty basket, I noticed something strange. My mother was talking to a woman, Mama Ibrahim, a wealthy woman who was admired and even revered in our village. She had money, a big house, and stories about the city that made her seem like she lived in another world. Mama Ibrahim was always surrounded by people, her presence commanding respect. It was rare to see her speaking to someone like my mother, someone from our class. I overheard bits of their conversation as I approached. They were speaking about opportunities and education. My heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Could she be offering me a way out? A chance to go to the city, to learn something that could change my life. The next day, my parents sat me down after dinner. My father, as quiet as ever, looked at me with eyes full of unsaid things. My mother, her hands wringing together in anxiety, finally spoke. Aisha, she said softly, Mama Ibrahim has offered you a chance to go with her to Lagos. There, you'll learn a skill, a trade. You'll go to school, and your life will be better. No more selling awara. No more struggling. I couldn't believe it. My heart raced, and for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't allowed myself to feel: hope. Finally, a way out. Finally, a chance to change my life. The next morning, I packed my things. I barely slept the night before, my mind racing with possibilities. This was it. This was my chance. The train that would take me far away from poverty was finally in motion, and I was on it. We left for Lagos early in the morning. The journey was long and tiring, but I didn't mind. The city, with all its promises, was waiting for me. When we arrived at Mama Ibrahim's house, I could hardly contain my excitement. It wasn't a mansion, but it was better than anything I had ever seen. It smelled of clean linen, fresh paint, and wealth. It was nothing like the dirt-floored hut I'd grown up in. Mama Ibrahim greeted me with a smile, her eyes glinting with something unreadable. Tomorrow, you'll see where you'll learn your new skill. Rest well tonight, Aisha. Tomorrow is the beginning of your new life. I slept, or at least tried to. My mind was too full of what tomorrow might bring. The next day came. I woke up early, full of anticipation. Mimar Ibrahim took me to a building, a tall structure, modern-looking, nothing like the mud houses of my village. It looked like a place where dreams could come true. A man who appeared to be a security guard greeted us at the door. He was large, his face stern, and his eyes calculating. He led me inside, through a cold, sterile hallway that smelled like bleach and metal. It looked normal outside, but once the door shut behind me, my stomach twisted. The walls were too quiet. The air felt thick. I was taken to a room at the end of the hall, and when the door opened, I stepped inside to find 4 girls around my age, sitting on the bed, talking softly among themselves. I greeted them nervously, unpacking my bag and arranging my things as they watched. We talked and we told each other our names. I asked one of the girls, a quiet one with sad eyes, when we would be going to the place where we'd learn the skill. She burst out laughing, a harsh, bitter sound. It was a laugh mixed with sorrow, and it made my heart sink. She looked at the others, and they all laughed too. Then she said, "You think you're here to learn a skill? No, Aisha. You're here to satisfy men. And dogs." The words hit me like a slap. I stood frozen, unable to comprehend what she was saying. "You're here to sleep with men and animals. And if you're unlucky, you'll have your organs sold to rich politicians," she continued. "This place isn't what you think. It's where girls like us are trapped, and no one ever escapes." I felt my world crash down around me. My heart pounded in my chest. This wasn't what I had imagined. This wasn't the opportunity one had dreamed of. But it was too late. I was already here, and I was already trapped. I couldn't breathe. I stumbled back toward the bed, my legs trembling. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't stop them. The room seemed to spin as I tried to make sense of what I'd just heard. Was this some sort of sick joke? Could they really be serious? I turned to look at the girls around me, hoping to find a shred of hope in their eyes. But there was nothing. They were all watching me, their faces hollow, their eyes void of emotion. It was as though they'd all accepted this as their reality, a reality I wasn't ready for. I asked one of the girls, the quiet one who had first spoken, what would happen next. Her response wasn't comforting. "Tomorrow, you'll be taken out. The men will come, and if you're lucky, you won't have to sleep with too many of them. You'll get used to it. We all do." Her voice was flat, devoid of any emotion. It was as though she had said those words 100 times, and each time it tore a little bit more of her soul away. I collapsed onto the bed, clutching the edges of the thin mattress as if it could protect me from the nightmare that was about to unfold. My mind raced. Was there any way out of this? I had no idea. I was in a building with no windows, no escape. The doors were locked, and the guards were always around. I could hear the soft hum of cameras in every corner, watching my every move. There was no way to run. No way to fight. I cried, quietly, afraid that the others would hear. The next morning, everything happened quickly. A guard came to the door, knocking twice before entering. "Get ready," he said curtly. "The men are here." I stood up slowly, my legs weak beneath me. I didn't want to move, but I had no choice. The girls in the room were already getting ready, some of them with resigned expressions, others with faces that showed nothing at all. They had already given up, already surrendered to whatever fate awaited them. The guard took me by the arm, leading me down the hallway to the elevator. The building was eerily silent, the kind of silence that makes your heart race and your skin crawl. We arrived at the ground floor, and as the elevator doors opened, I saw them. A group of men, all dressed in expensive suits, standing by the door like they owned the place. Some of them looked at me with eyes that seemed to pierce through me, their gazes cold and hungry. Others barely glanced up. But it didn't matter. I was nothing to them. Just another girl, another body to satisfy their whims. I was led out to a car, and before I could even process what was happening, the door slammed shut behind me. The man beside me didn't say a word as the car started moving. I could feel my heart in my throat, thudding painfully against my chest. This was it. This was what I had come for. I tried to close my mind to everything, to block out the sounds, the voices, the touch. But it was impossible. I was drowning in it. The men in the room didn't care about me, they only cared about what I could give them. And that was all I was, a commodity. The night was long and brutal. By the end of it, I couldn't remember how many men had used me. I was numb. Empty. I lay on the floor like a rag. My thighs wet with blood and semen. My body twitching. My voice gone. My innocence murdered. My body felt like it wasn't even mine anymore. I couldn't cry anymore. The tears had dried up long ago. But I felt something deep within me, a kind of hollowness, a dark, aching emptiness that would never go away. When I returned to the building, I was no longer the girl who had arrived just the day before. Something inside me had broken, something I didn't think could ever be fixed. The other girls tried to console me, but their words were hollow. "You'll get used to it," one of them said, her voice as lifeless as her eyes. But I didn't want to get used to it. I didn't want to lose myself. I couldn't let this be who I was. That night, after the others had gone to sleep, I lay awake in my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the building. I didn't know what I was waiting for, but I knew that I couldn't stay here any longer. I had to find a way out. But how? The guards were always watching. The doors were always locked. The cameras followed my every move. There was no escape. Not unless I found a way to outsmart them, to slip past the walls they'd built around me. And so, I spent my days in the building, trying to survive, trying to hold on to whatever fragments of myself I could. But every day, the walls closed in just a little more. Every day, I lost a piece of who I had once been. The guards were everywhere, always watching, always making sure we never got too comfortable, never dared to think we could escape. There were no windows. No way out. And if we even dared to look like we were planning something, we were punished. It started with the men, the rich men who came and went, paying for whatever they wanted. And sometimes, not just men. I still remember the first time I was forced to sleep with an animal, a dog actually. The billionaire who paid for it was sitting across the room, his eyes gleaming with an unsettling mixture of boredom and satisfaction. He didn't care about me. I was nothing to him, just a body to use. He'd paid, and that was all that mattered. The dog he'd brought with him, an enormous, terrifying creature, had been trained for this. They told me to clean up. Said the man didn't like smelling girls. No protection. No explanation. They gave me a pill to make me numb. It didn't work. I was tied. Bent. Used. The dog mounted me. It astrated me ***. And I broke. I broke in ways I didn't know a human being could. I wanted to die, but death was shy. I didn't know how to react when it was happening. I didn't have the strength to scream. My body was no longer mine, and my mind was a million miles away, retreating as far as it could from the nightmare unfolding around me. I closed my eyes, and the world faded into darkness. When it was over, I felt filthy, but there was nothing I could do to wash it off. They didn't care about what I felt. They only cared that I stayed clean enough for the next client. They made sure we kept our bodies pristine, so the men didn't complain. Some men wanted us raw. Others demanded protection. But no matter what, we were given pills after each encounter. Abortion pills. Our bodies didn't matter, only the transaction. It was a routine. Wake up, serve the men, endure the humiliation, and then go back to our rooms to cry alone. But we couldn't even cry for long. We had to sleep, to be ready for the next day. The cycle was endless. One night, as we rested, I overheard a scream coming from the room next door. My blood ran cold, and I sat up in bed, straining to listen. The other girls didn't even flinch. They were used to it. I asked, "What happened to her?" The response came cold and indifferent. "She's dead. Her organs were sold. You'll never know when it's your turn. You just pray you don't get killed by one of them." Another said they killed her. "She slept with 5 men last night. Then one paid for her full body. Organs and all." I shuddered at the thought. Every single girl in this place was expendable. We were commodities, nothing more. A body to be used and discarded when we no longer served a purpose. I spent days in a haze, fighting back the growing panic that gnawed at my insides. My mind wandered back to my family. My mother. My father. My siblings. What had they been told about me? Had Mema Ibrahim told them I ran away with a man? Had they even been searching for me? I couldn't remember the last time I'd heard from anyone. I had become a ghost, not just in this building, but in the world. My parents were out there, but they would never find me in this place. No one could hear my screams. No one could save me. And then, the worst happened. The next morning, I woke to find that one of the girls, the one who had laughed bitterly when I arrived, was missing. The others didn't seem concerned. They simply said she'd been taken out, just like the rest of us. But I knew the truth. She'd been the one to make the joke about dying here, about being killed and sold for our organs. And now she was gone. She'd been taken, used up, and disposed of. She wasn't the first, and she wouldn't be the last. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to do something. Anything. But the only thing I could do was sit there, paralyzed by fear, knowing that it could be my turn next. The building seemed to grow darker every day, its walls closing in around me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. The suffocating weight of despair pressed on my chest, and I wondered how much longer I could survive like this. I tried to escape. One night, when the others were busy with their clients, I made a run for it. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew that if I didn't leave, I would die here, just like the others. My heart pounded in my chest as I raced through the hallways, desperate for an exit. But I was caught. The guards didn't even hesitate. They grabbed me, dragging me back to the room. I tried to fight back, but I was weak. I had no strength left. One of the guards, a tall, cruel man, grabbed a bucket of what smelled like bleach and detergent. He poured it over my body, the cold liquid burning my skin. I screamed, but he didn't care. He struck me, he beat me, his hand coming down with a brutal force that sent me crashing to the floor. For 2 days, I was denied food. For 2 days, I lay on the cold floor, barely able to move, my body covered in burns from the chemical attack. The pain was unbearable, but the worst part was knowing that I was nothing to them, just another girl they could break. After that, I stopped fighting. I stopped trying to escape. I accepted my fate, as terrifying as it was. I knew that if I kept fighting, they would break me completely. But that didn't mean I had given up. I still had something inside me, something I couldn't let go of. It wasn't hope, but a deep, burning desire to survive. To make it out of here, somehow. I just didn't know how. I had long since stopped counting the days. Each one bled into the next, a continuous cycle of suffering and silence. I had become numb to the horrors surrounding me. The men, the dogs, the pills, none of it shocked me anymore. I had lost myself, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but a hollow shell, just going through the motions. I lived like that for 1 year and 6 months. Some nights, I serviced men. Others, I was used by animals. Some clients just came to watch. Some inserted things into us, objects I don't even want to name. They treated us like toys, not people. We weren't humans anymore. We were tools for their pleasure, pain, and perversion. There were days I bled from between my legs without stop. Days I lost my voice from screaming. Days I lost my mind and found it again under the bed, curled like a sick cat. But I never forgot my name. Aisha. Every night, while I bathed, I whispered it to myself. Just so I wouldn't forget who I was. But one night, something unexpected happened. I was assigned to a new client, someone different from the usual crowd. He didn't look like the others, he wasn't just there to use me. He didn't speak much, but there was something about his demeanor that caught my attention. He wasn't like the men who came to this place, their eyes cold and hungry. He seemed more human. When we arrived at the hotel where he had booked the room, I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I wasn't sure if it was fear or something else, something unfamiliar, like hope. I hadn't felt hope in so long. He led me into the room, a large, sterile space. It wasn't like the dingy rooms in the building, the ones where we were thrown around like animals. This room was clean, comfortable even. It felt wrong. I wasn't supposed to feel comfortable here. I did what I had done so many times before, laid on the bed, waiting for him to make his move. But he didn't. Instead, He surprised me by sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at me with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Tell me about yourself," he said quietly, his voice calm, almost soothing. "How old are you? How did you end up here? Do you like what you're doing?" I looked at him, unsure of what to say. For a moment, I thought he was just another man who wanted to use me, who would hurt me like the others. But the way he was looking at me, the softness in his eyes, made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time: trust. Or maybe it was just desperation. I don't want to be here," I whispered, my voice cracking with the weight of the words I had never allowed myself to say out loud. He nodded slowly, his expression softening. "I know. I've heard about places like this. I'm here to help. I'm an undercover agent. My name is Khalid. I've been sent to find out everything I can about this place." My heart stopped. For a moment, I didn't understand. My mind raced, trying to process what he was saying. An undercover agent. Here, in the middle of the nightmare I had been trapped in for so long. I've been tracking this ring for months. I've heard whispers. Girls disappearing. Bodies found with missing organs. I needed someone inside. I've been posing as a client, gathering evidence. Tonight, I chose you. My mouth went dry. "No," I shook my head. "This is a trick. You're testing me. They'll kill me if I talk." "I swear to you," he said, pulling out an ID. "This ends tonight, but I need your story. I need to know how they move. Who runs it? Who guards it? Every detail." Before I could respond, he stood up and went to the door, opening it slightly. A group of police officers and agents stepped inside, their faces set in grim determination. "We're getting you out of here," Khalid said, turning back to me. "You're safe now." I didn't know how to react. My mind was spinning. For so long, I had given up hope of ever escaping this place, of ever seeing the outside world again. But now, in front of me, stood the possibility of freedom. It was almost too much to believe. They helped me to my feet and guided me out of the hotel room. I could hardly walk, my legs weak from months of abuse. But as I stepped into the hallway, I felt something stir within me, a flicker of life, a spark of something I thought had been lost forever. As we left the building, I glanced back at the life I had left behind, at the place that had destroyed everything I had once been. The lights flickered as we passed, and I could hear the distant cries of the other girls, my friends, who were still trapped inside. They didn't know what was happening. They didn't know that I was leaving. That maybe, just maybe, they could be free too. We arrived at a safe house, where I was greeted by more officers and medical staff. I was immediately examined, treated for the physical and emotional scars that had been left on me. The doctors were kind, but it was clear they had seen too many girls like me. Too many lives broken in places like the one I had just escaped. I told them everything, about Mama Ibrahim, about the guards. I told them literally everything. I was reunited with my family shortly after. My mother didn't recognize me at first. She stared at me, tears welling up in her eyes as she took in the girl standing before her. The girl who had once been full of life and hope. The girl who had been stolen away and brought back shattered. "I'm sorry, my child," she whispered, pulling me into a tight hug. I could feel the tremors in her arms as she held me, as if she couldn't believe I was really there. "I thought I had lost you forever." I could hardly speak. My throat was tight, my heart heavy with 1,000 emotions. I had been saved, but the scars, physical and emotional, would never go away. There was no going back to the way things were before. I wasn't the same person I had been when I left. But I was alive. The building where I had been held was raided, and the people who had run it, Mama Ibrahim's cohorts, were arrested. They were taken down in a matter of hours, but that didn't make the years of abuse I had suffered go away. It didn't bring back the girls who hadn't made it out. As for Mama Ibrahim, she had fled the village after news of her involvement spread. The villagers didn't wait for the authorities to find her. They came together, forming a mob, and tracked her down. When they found her, they didn't show mercy. She was beaten, publicly humiliated, and eventually handed over to the police. She was arrested, and justice, at least for the moment, was served. But even with all the arrests, even with the raids and the justice, I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside me had been lost forever. I would never be the same. The trauma had left a permanent mark, one that would never fade. I chose not to marry. I couldn't bear the thought of becoming anyone's wife after what I had endured. Instead, I focused on healing. I enrolled in therapy, joined support groups for survivors, and slowly began to rebuild my life. I couldn't forget the girls who were still out there, still trapped in the same hell I had escaped. But I vowed to never let their suffering be in vain. I would do whatever it took to raise awareness, to fight for them, to make sure their voices were heard. I was no longer the girl who had left her village with hope in her eyes. But I was a survivor. And that was something no one could take away from me. For more real-life stories, please subscribe if you watched till the end.